Hello everyone, this is Damon with Pixing Up Software. In this video, I'm going to be discussing something different than you've probably ever done with your compositing, and that is doing extractionless compositing. Now this video will get slightly technical, but I'll try to keep it as simple as I can. However, just know that if you want to do a technique like this, it does require a little bit of Photoshop knowledge if you want to know how to set up your templates, if you're creating your own. And even if you're working with a design, for example, this design that I made, you're still going to want to know a little bit about Photoshop. So just keep that in mind. And I'm not going to be teaching everybody Photoshop itself in this video. So I'll just be assuming that you all know enough about Photoshop layering to keep up, and if not, then this is probably not a technique for you anyway. So this design I just released, and this is a pretty basic design, so don't get too caught up in if it's an actual design that you want to use or not, because I wanted to keep the first example really basic and easy to understand with the layer structures to where you can really see what's going on. And I plan to, over the next few months, release different designs that get more complex with each release, with different designs, because I do think this technique has a lot of promise, and I think it can save a lot of time in your post-processing. So when I say extractionless, that's exactly what that sounds like. In this case, we're taking Lastolite images. This template was designed for Lastolite. And we're creating these composited images without cutting the image out. Now, with this extractionless technique, it doesn't mean that you can just take any template and set it up in SPA and expect the image to look cut out onto that template. That's not what this is. What this is blending images in such a way, and in this case, to give almost a composited look without the image being cut out. So the templates have to be strategically designed based on the images you're shooting, and in this case, Lastolite. So if we look at this image, if we undo the overlays, I'll hide this background, which we can't see anyway because the image isn't cut out. But just looking at this image, you can see we're looking at the Lastolite image as shot right here. But once the overlays are applied, you can see this image really has a composited and cut out look to it. So in this case, it's a white background with some texture added. But that's all being done with blending layers to create these effects. And so I think I'm just going to start over from scratch here. And the template is going to come like this when you download it. And then you would add images to SPA, or in SPA the same way you would cut out images, either in batch, or in this case I'm just going to do the example in the setup. But the difference is you're adding non-cut out images. And it's not going to actually cut the image out. It's just going to put the image in the template the same as it would any other image. And in this case, it was using player mode 1, so it's doing the face alignment to this red box here. So nothing different with how it places the image other than it's not cut out. Now with this looks okay right out of the box. But you can see that some of this texture goes over top of the person, and also the where the team name goes is going over the top of them. So that's something that we don't want to have happen. So with this template download, there's going to be some actions that it comes with. And one of the actions is called Add Layer Mask. Now, this is not doing a cutout again, it's adding some layer mask just to mask out the texture where we don't want it, more or less. So if I hit Add Layer Mask and hit play, And you can see that now the image has even more of a cutout look to it than it did before, because now the team name is behind the player. Now, where it just has the X's, this is where you'd put your team name and your player name. But that everything goes behind the player now, or at least has the appearance of it. Now, how it's doing that is this actually is running a select subject, and it's creating layer mask here. And we can see the layer mask in 3 different locations. However, those layer masks themselves are not actually cutting the image out. So therefore, it doesn't have to be perfect. The only place where the mask has to be, I guess, perfect is around the very top of the head, where it's putting the text behind the layer. So how it's actually accomplishing that is if I go to the team name text here. Let me find that. So on the team name group, it's adding this layer mask, which is just putting the team name, or it's masking out the team name in the shape of the person. So if we look at that mask, let's say this mask is just totally messed up. Let's just, paint some on, paint some off, and let's take a look at it. We see that it has no effect on the actual image itself, because the only place the mask matters in this case is right where the team name goes behind the head. So it doesn't have to be perfect, and that's why we can get away with the select subject tool when this action runs. And then this grunge mask, the only thing this is doing is where this grunge goes over in front of the person. You can see a little bit down here, a little bit up here. That mask is just masking out just that texture. So again, this mask doesn't have to be perfect. We can completely mess that mask up, and you're really not going to notice. And the other part of the mask is this layer called Whiten Lastolite. What this does is, because the original image on the Lastolite, you can see this is not perfectly white. You can see here that it's not pure white. We've got, it's not 255 for all the colors. It's got just a slight yellowish to it. Well, this brighten or whiten Lastolite layer, this is just the levels that it applies to make your Lastolite pure white. And without that mask, if we just put the image in, it applies that levels to the entire image. But with that mask enabled, it doesn't apply that brightening effect to the player. And if again your mask is not perfect, you can see if I paint on, all it's doing is adding that brightening effect to the areas where the mask isn't perfect. And really that's going to be pretty unnoticeable for the most part. So you can get away with using this technique a lot of times by strategically setting up your layers in a way to where you can apply a masking effect, but that mask doesn't have to be perfect. And so in the case of the select subject, where it often will cut off things that aren't supposed to be, like sports equipment, it's not going to be as noticeable. So I do have an example image here that I know the volleyball doesn't mask out well. So let me add that here. And anytime with this, when you add a different player or change the text, those previous masks are not going to line up. So you can see here, you see we had the old mask. You see where the texture is now not showing because that texture is being masked incorrectly. So what we have in the action here is an action to remove layer mask. So you can run that to remove the mask, and then run the action to add layer mask. And like I say, these actions come with the template. And now you can see that the image has the masking as it should. And so with this technique, with the extractionless, often there'll need to be an action associated with it to help set up your layer masking on the different texture layers, at least for this technique here. And when you run in Sports Photo Automation, when you batch, what you would do is run post action on player, and you would add, or you would run that action called add layer mask. So if you're using this template, it's going to add these layer masks if you run this action automatically after it replaces any text in your image. So you don't have to actually play that action for every image. Sports Photo Automation can do that automatically in batch. So I'm sure this video probably went over a lot of people's heads, but it's probably best to just download this design and just play around with it to see how it works. Because once you understand it, the concept is really very simple. You are basically taking an image such as this on a white background, not cutting it out, adding it to this template design, and then when you batch, you're running that action to set up the layer masking for those textures. Oh, that reminds me too, I added the second image just so I could show you here the example of a mask where the ball is the ball's been cut out here. The volleyball, the select subject tool doesn't recognize the volleyball well, but even though on all three layers where there's a mask and that ball's not selected correctly, you really don't notice. That's just because like I say, the layers are designed in a way to where it's really forgiving. Now I can see the spots where it's having an effect that mask is incorrect. So the texture overlays, for example, if this mask needs to be black in this area, it might be kind of hard to see, but if I undo that, you can see there's a texture there kind of in the ball. And as soon as I paint black on the mask, that texture goes away. Now the same thing with the whitening. This ball got a whitening effect because remember that levels layer that were brightening the background, well, that ball got brightened because it did not get selected. So if I paint in that mask to where it's actually now masked correctly, you can see that whitening effect is no longer being applied to the basketball. But like I say, let's undo those and then redo those mask touch-ups I did. So even without the mask touch-ups, you may never even notice when you print this out, especially like on an 8x10. And this is an extreme example too. So, and actually the texture might actually make it look better in some cases, but just know that it's different than if your mask was messed up on a cutout. Whereas if your mask was messed up on a cutout, that ball would be missing, but that's not the effect you're going to have in this case if the select subject didn't work properly. And when I say the select subject, I'm talking about that add layer mask runs select subject to mask out these textures. Anyway, I don't know how to dumb this down any more than I did because, like I say, this concept is a little bit different. So hopefully you understood, and if not, maybe this technique is not for you anyway. But for those who do understand and can grasp this, it can open up a world of possibilities to creating templates that don't need images cut out for them. Now, and like I mentioned, you need to strategically design your template for the images you're shooting. In this case, it was designed for Lastolite. So if we were to, for example, add in a player image that wasn't Lastolite, this is going to become very apparent what this template is doing, because now you see that the image is not cut out at all. Even if I hit remove layer mask and then re-add layer mask, the only thing the layer mask are going to do is put this team name behind the head, hide the grunge, and hide some of the brightening effect that it's doing. But you can see the image is not really cut out. I hope this makes sense. Feel free to download this design for the people who are in the Platinum. I've got a link for that. Play with this with some of your Lastolite images. And in the next few months, I have quite a few more different things I'm hoping to release, to where not just with Lastolite, but with some other on-location type of images to do some of these extractionless effects. Anyways, thanks for watching. And if you want to discuss this at all in the Platinum group, I'll be opening this up for discussion as well, because I think this is a new concept and people are going to have a lot of questions.